helping seniors of Brevard, kind of a daily double there, or a double dose, or a twin spin. That might be better, Kerry.
There you go. That sounds radio appropriate.
Exactly. And here's Kerry Fink.
Thank you, John Harper. It's always great to be on the radio here on 90.3 FM, WEJF. We gather around the radio every Wednesday, lunchtime, right here. And hello to those of you who listen online at WEJF.net, and those of you who will catch this later as a podcast. Every place you get podcasts, from Apple iTunes to iHeartRadio or wherever you find them, look for Helping Seniors of Brevard as a podcast. And if you are joining us later, you will not necessarily get the first part of the program, but today we are on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So we have an awful lot to be thankful for. We have worked very hard. We're a little tiny 501c3, which is a fancy word for nonprofit called Helping Seniors of Brevard. And our president and founder, Joe Steckler, organized us all those years back with the intention of getting good information and resources to seniors and their families so that they can age with the best possible quality of life. So here we are 13 years later, and thank you to you for helping support the work of Helping Seniors, because we sure can't do this without you. And so today we have actually a gift for you called Maximizing Your Savings in Retirement. That's going to be, so we're actually going to say thank you by hopefully giving you some good resources today and saving you some money. But we also were thanking a lot of very, very important people yesterday at the Senior Resource Center Brevard. That's that facility that is shaping up nicely in that beautiful Omni Professional Health Tower building right there at 1344 South Apollo Drive on the medical campus, very close to the hospital. They've given us a really nice space on the second floor, and we're taking it over inch by inch. And so with us today, we have a couple of people that, let me introduce, longtime friend. She has her own company called Seniors Helping Seniors of Brevard. They hire seniors to help seniors with a lot of different things that are very valuable. We'll get into that in the show, and we'll talk about how that actually can save you time and money. Welcome, Jennifer.
It is wonderful to be here.
And Jennifer is also on our board of directors, but also kind of the instigator and implementer. And it looked terrific from all the photos. We had an event yesterday at the Senior Resource Center called Thank You Veterans, right?
Yes.
And it really was tremendous. And so I want to go ahead and bring in the other guest in our studio today. He has been a longtime friend of the Helping Seniors group. He goes way, way back. I remember Joe Pons and Joe Steckler sitting down and doing television years ago. Joe has faithfully been saving seniors a lot of money through his company called Canadian Meds of Melbourne. We're going to talk about that. But also, thank you, sir, for your service, because we were talking about that you were in the Army, and actually when we get in and we talk for a moment about Thank You Veterans, your dad was kind of like a star of the show, too.
Absolutely, and thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about how it went yesterday. I saw the photos. There was pinning ceremonies. A couple of the really wonderful hospices in our area were part of that. They came in, and then what I loved seeing, and I can't wait to read it, was your dad was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam, and so I guess he shared some of the experience, and then also he was signing his book and stuff too, right?
That is absolutely correct, yes. And he did a short talk for folks. They saw the book, reading a couple of pages, and insisted that he speak a little bit. So he spoke for about a half an hour. The book itself is called 600 MOL, and he was giving some insights as to some of his experiences, not only in Vietnam, but here in America as a helicopter pilot for the Army.
Yeah. Jennifer, I was saying to Joe just before we got on the air, I said, what I really love about that whole story is, like, you know, being a kid growing up at that time and seeing what these heroes were doing flying across, in these helicopters. It looked terribly scary, actually, because, you know, they were so close to the ground yet doing such important work getting our guys in and out. It's like unbelievable.
Oh, absolutely. He was describing some of the not exact missions, but types of missions that he did. And I cannot imagine. But the talk that he gave yesterday was very moving. So I'll brag on Joe's dad because he's probably trying to be good. But
right.
When he finished his talk, there was a gentleman, another Vietnam veteran in the back, who stood up and saluted him.
Wow.
And it was just such a moving moment. And I wished I had it on film or at least a picture of it, but it brought tears to my eyes. It was very moving. It was a very moving talk, and then a moving moment after the talk. So it was wonderful, and hopefully we can have him back again.
Yeah, I was saying, now I've gotten in the habit of calling everything, because everything's new for us at the center, right? We just did a winter holiday market that was so much fun like the week before. And so we said, well, that was the first annual. We got to do it again. But I think the same is happening with the honoring the veterans. And I love how you set it up, because you were careful to say, like, there's a lot of great programs going on for veterans that are happening right around Veterans Day. But you said, let's take a day as we get close to Thanksgiving and thank everybody for their service. And Joe, that includes you for your service in the Army too.
Well, thank you. I'm obliged and grateful to help, because it was such a fantastic event.
Yeah, no, it really was. It really was exciting, and it looked like it was very heartfelt. And again, our very own president and founder, Joe Steckler, he's retired captain in the Navy, and as we always talk about, in his younger days, he drove submarines around and things like that. But his last command in the Navy, and we've talked about this before, was that he ran the Navy's retirement home in Gulfport, Mississippi, and I think that's maybe where he kind of got a real passion and a lifelong desire to see what we could do for seniors. And we were actually talking about him a lot yesterday, because Joe is the guy that got Brevard Alzheimer's rolling, got those Joe's Clubs built, and then even when he retired from that, he comes across the street and says, we got to create another organization for seniors, so that we are helping seniors with the things that may not necessarily be cognition related, but also are important for making sure that seniors actually get help on all the areas that they need help for. So we keep hearing from seniors over and over. I was talking with Nancy Deerdorf, who is our operations director, and we were talking a little bit yesterday about the fact that really what she says is the number one calls we get in on the senior helpline, the 321-473-7707. Did I say that right? 7770 number are coming in about housing. Okay, so that's like the first calls that we're getting. But she said really kind of coming up number two, as I used to say, John will appreciate this, number two with a bullet on the Hot 100 chart. She said we're getting a lot of calls about transportation now, because it's really becoming more and more of an issue as people try to find their way to and from appointments. Sometimes it's as simple as I got to get to the grocery store and restock the refrigerator. So Jennifer Barton, that's an area that you guys are able to help with. Talk a little bit for a minute, because I don't think people know really enough about seniors helping seniors. We know that you're a great employer of seniors, and we know that you provide great service to seniors. But let's take a minute and make sure that we kind of go through the catalog of things. And let's not forget that we need to talk about the electronic caregiver, which is a whole part of everything you guys do too.
Yes. So transportation is one of the things that we've done for years. And, back in 2018, 2019, we did start to have to go to scheduled services. We used to do as needed, and we started scheduled services just so that we'd make sure that we had the caregiver available, especially 2020, 21 when COVID was going on. We wanted to make sure we knew we had our customers covered. So we went to a 2-hour minimum once a week, which is pretty low in the county as far as a home care company is concerned. So we knew that we were meeting a need. We were keeping it low. We were keeping it flexible for customers so that we could go out once a week, take people to Publix, Walmart, CVS. If they needed to go to the library or the post office, we could take them out on their weekly errands in a cost-effective way.
Yeah.
And what as we're hearing that need for the transportation more and more and more, we are rolling out a transportation package.
Oh.
So it's not out yet. You're first to hear it live today.
Wow, love it.
But we're trying to, because as we're talking to our seniors and Nancy on that senior helpline, and some of the resources, unfortunately, have dried up.
Right.
We're trying to meet the need. It's not going to be perfect for everyone, but we're hoping that it's helpful. And so we want to have that rolled out by the end of the year.
Wow. Well, that's exciting because I know it's a challenge. One of the partners in our Senior Resource Center of Brevard, which you guys are as Seniors Helping Seniors, Joe Pons is with Canadian Meds of Melbourne, but another partner is Coastal Occupational Therapy. And Jeetal and her team, they actually are very invested and kind of expert in this whole thing about drivability, helping seniors assess whether it's safe to drive. But even sometimes you may not even want to drive if you can find the right transportation, because it takes a whole level of pressure off of you. And especially when you have somebody that can help you make those rounds and do those things, which is really something you guys just do in general. I know that the technical term, correct me if I'm not saying this right, is you guys are companion care, which means you're able to help with a lot of things like the driving, like the meals, like the taking care of things around the house. And all those areas are so important for seniors to know, and also know that it's not, you don't have to be like super rich to be able to afford this. It's very affordable how you guys set all that up.
Right. We try to be very flexible so that we are meeting the needs. So for our clients who maybe can only afford 2 hours a week, we can do that. Some of the hands-on companies, have to do 12 hours a week,
right?
Which they may not need the hands-on, and they may not need 12 hours. So
right.
we're trying to keep the minimums low so that people still can afford the services, but yet provide those services that they need, like all the ones that you just mentioned. We'll take care of the pets while we're there. We've taken care of cats, dogs, bunny rabbits, parrots, you name it. If it's non-medical, we'll try to help with it.
We've had a lot of conversations about the things that seniors, helping seniors does, because we've talked about this, that so often what happens is a senior may choose to try to maybe meal on their own, which as much as anything else could mean something maybe not nutritious or not even correct as far as what the doctors ask you to do. But those are areas you guys can get into and help, because you can help with the shopping and different things like that as well. It's almost like when you start to add it up, and I know I've heard Joe talking about Joe Steckler, our president founder. He's talked about this a lot before. He talks about getting the elements of care right. In other words, the right service for the right moment in your aging journey. And we often talk about what's so good about Seniors Helping Seniors and the type of service you do is you're really that entry level, that first rung of care. So you get mom or dad used to getting a little bit of help at the home and things that they really would find useful, without intimidating them to like, oh, now somebody's coming in and taking over my life.
Right. And often I was just on the phone with a prospective client, a daughter, and I recommended starting with 2 hours. She was thinking three days a week. And I said, start small so that mom is comfortable with it, and then let it be her idea to grow from there. I'd rather people start small and increase slowly than force people to have a whole bunch of care that they've never had before and hate it.
Right.
So start small. But to your point too, but go ahead and start, because if we get in there early, proper nutrition, making sure they're eating healthy, staying social, we can keep them healthy a lot longer in their own home, which in the end, when you look at a cost of assisted living or 24-hour hands-on care in the home, we're a whole lot cheaper. So it's cheaper, to start services maybe even a little earlier than the senior thinks they need it, but going ahead and getting that service so that they are eating well and they are staying active. So we're hopefully preventing falls from the future and preventing a lot of expenditures and heartache down the road.
We've talked about that so often. We've made our theme in the helping seniors and everything we do with education in that part of our world. We call it, Joe's always called it an aging plan, and I always break it down to say, look, you understand what a hurricane plan is living in Florida. It just means you don't want a hurricane, but you want to be ready in case one's coming at you. That's what an aging plan is. We euphemistically, to try to make it sound a little less intimidating, a little bit more approachable, we just say, look, let's work together and work on getting your ducks in a row. And so one of the points, though, that we talked about this first year, that we've been kind of out there with the get your ducks in a row thing. We've been kind of over and over about this idea. Don't try this on your own. People love, because we have on our little phone, we can, search for anything. The question is, are we getting anything back that makes sense or is actually correct? Because there's that old saying, if it's on the internet, it must be true, right? But the point is, there is so much good local help. I've seen people call like 800 numbers that they see a number on TV, and they're calling somebody and they're asking for help that they need locally. And yet they're talking to a call center, and I don't pick. Omaha's a beautiful city, but I'm just picking Nebraska just to be silly, because you're talking to somebody who's doing the same thing that you would do. You would try to look online and try to find something that matches up. And as those of us who live in Brevard County, we know that it's unique. There's beachside versus mainland. There's North County versus South County, and all these things that we understand as residents of Brevard County that somebody, even if they have great intentions, sitting out in the Midwest, isn't going to know about where we live. My point about that, and I was going to ask you to talk a little bit about this, is you actually spend a lot of your time also talking to the parents, the children of parents who live here in Florida, because they may be busy on their job up north or in the Midwest, and they're calling you because they need somebody that they can be sure is looking after mom the right way, and kind of reporting back and saying, here's where we are. And you guys are also really good about saying, now we're at the level where it's got to progress. We got to call in this, or we got to do another step, because this is just where we are. Talk about that for a minute.
Right. We've had 3 calls this week where the kids are in town for Thanksgiving, and they've noticed that their parent is not doing as well as they thought they were.
Right.
And want to meet with us this week while they're still here, so at least they can meet one of us here in the office, and we can go ahead and do an assessment and get services started the week after Thanksgiving. So we're constantly talking to the family and keeping them updated. And however communication that is too. So, even though we're seniors helping seniors, sometimes we're texting the kids up north. Yeah. Sometimes it's emailing or calling, whatever their preferred communication method is, to let them know, hey, here's what we're seeing. I actually had a client just a couple of weeks ago where we really recommended some hands-on care. Moms to that point where help showering would be a great idea. And mom called me and was a little upset with me. Why are you giving me away? Why are you, don't you take my ladies away from me? And I said, we love you. We're not giving you away. We really don't. But I really feel that it's in your best interest to have some additional services so that you are staying healthy. That's the goal, is to keep you healthy and safe at home where you want to be. So no, not at all do I want to get rid of you. We would love to continue services. But my heart and my morals say that we want what's best for you, even if that's unfortunately having to say goodbye.
Yeah, and there's a whole thing in there, because you and I talked about this a lot going through COVID, how families, you've always been important in that role, but especially in those moments when people couldn't travel, what you do about being in the home and being the hands and feet and eyes and ears and know what's going on became even that much more important. And like you said, particularly around holiday times, now that we can gather again, we're able to fly in, visit mom or dad, but then we're also like, oh my goodness, maybe this is getting a little beyond what they can manage themselves. Right.
And one of the things that I kid my caregivers about, because they are all seniors, they have no problem telling me. Absolutely not. Yeah. So they will call and say, hey, I don't like what's going on. I don't like the way she looks today, just for whatever reason. Sometimes it's very specific of this is what's going on. And they keep very good notes, right, so that the family can see them. They can go onto the family portal, see all the notes, see what's going on, so they're up to date. But we have, thankfully, even though we're not medical, the caregivers really get to know their client and spend a lot of time with them. So they've called and said, she's off today. I don't know what's going on, but something's not right. And the daughter has called in some medical help. We do have practitioners in motion. We'll go in and assess the client. Yes. And sure enough, there was a UTI.
Wow.
And there wasn't really something you could put your finger on it, but she knew something was different. And so thankfully we were able to prevent it from getting much worse. She caught it very, very early.
Right. And, that's another point that I want to bring up is that, so one of the unique things about what your organization does is you hire seniors to work with seniors. So there is a level of empathy that maybe it's tougher sometimes. It doesn't mean young people don't care, but it's harder for them maybe to always grasp what's going on with a senior in the way that maybe another senior can. And further on that kind of that same line of thinking, I want us to just take a moment to talk about people who will go down to the grocery store and just pluck a number off of a bulletin board that says, I can help clean your home or something like that. Because you really don't know at that point who you're letting into your home and what problems you might have. And one of the other benefits that you guys have is everybody is, you have all that accountability and responsibility put together.
Absolutely, yeah. We have the state mandated Federal 2 background check, so it's all states and territories. Mm-hmm. But we further look into everyone's background. We want to make sure, my policy has always been, I don't want to hire somebody that I wouldn't put in my own mom's house.
Right.
So we're very fussy about who we hire. Now, in the same token, I'll tell everybody we're also that way with our caregivers. I'm not going to put a caregiver in a house that I wouldn't put mom in. We take really good care of our caregivers. When they come on board, we welcome them to our Seniors Helping Seniors family. And we try to make sure that they are matched with our clients, because if the caregivers are having a great time and they're feeling loved, the clients are getting absolutely wonderful service, and the whole thing works really, really well.
Yeah, no, it is. It's because I've seen both caregivers when they come into the Senior Resource Center to visit at your office, and then even people that have come in who are clients. They all say the same thing. What you guys do is such a valuable service. And I was thinking too, when you're talking about, like, if you're talking with a family and say, like, look, we can, maybe get the ball rolling on a couple of hours. I was thinking, like, that can't be more than a few $100s per month by the time you put all of that together. And think about the peace, the security, and the help that you're going to get, the peace of mind that you're going to get by just having that whole kind of starting setup going.
Exactly. It really is. We got an email this morning that made us all cry. We had a customer that we've had since early 2018, so we've had her for a long time. And she passed.
Oh, sorry.
We knew it was coming, but she passed. And the daughter emailed us today and said, thank you for everything that you've done. And the two ladies that were with her were more than caregivers. They had become family. And it was just the sweetest, it was sad, but the sweetest email. And it did. We all kind of stood around and shed a tear because it was so sweet. But that's the goal.
Sign of a job well done.
Exactly.
Yeah. No,
exactly.
It's wonderful. Well, we're about to our mid-show break, but I wanted to make sure we're talking with Jennifer Barton with Seniors Helping Seniors, and I want to make sure they have numbers to call you. How do they reach you?
We can be reached at 321-722-2999. Again, that's 321-722-2999. We're on the web, seniorshelpingseniors.com/Brevard. And we're on Facebook and social media too.
Good. Well, it's exciting. And we're going to come back on the second half and talk with Joe Pons. And we're going to talk to you about how you can save money on your prescriptions. Second half of Helping Seniors coming up next.
And that music of your life reminds us that it's time to get back to Helping Seniors of Brevard, the conversation for and about seniors. Here's your host of the program, along with the executive director of Helping Seniors of Brevard, Kerry Fink.
Wow. Thanks, John Harper. The way you said that, it sounds like I'm sitting here beside myself. But it's all good. Thank you for joining us again on 90.3 FM, WEJF. This is the home of the Helping Seniors Radio Lunchtime Hour every Wednesday, 12 noon to 1 p.m. on this great radio station. Welcome to folks who are joining us online, WEJF.net. And those who are continuing with us as a podcast. And if you need to, please let me refer you back to the first half of the show, because we had a great conversation with Jennifer Barton of Seniors Helping Seniors about how you can get good help saving money in your home. And in the second half of the show, we're going to talk with Joe Pons, and we're going to talk about how you can get savings on your prescriptions. This is important information that a lot of people don't know. Before we get there, though, I want to recap something we talked about at the top of the show, and that was the fact that we were so fortunate to have a really nice event at the Senior Resource Center of Brevard in downtown Melbourne. So we're in that beautiful Omni Professional Healthcare building. We have some great space on the second floor, and it is it's the fulfillment of a vision that Joe Steckler, our president and founder, has had almost since the beginning of the Helping Seniors organization. And that was a place where seniors could come and get access to good resources and a kind of a hub so that those who provide good resources to seniors can network together and make sure we're doing the best we can for seniors. And so Jennifer Barton, putting on her Helping Seniors hat, everybody always gets us confused, Jennifer, because they think Seniors Helping Seniors, your company, is the same as Helping Seniors of Brevard. And so half the time they call one of us, meaning the other, and yet you're so kind that you serve on our board of directors and help us with everything anyway. But you were so kind to come up with this great idea. Thank you, vets. And what a great event that was yesterday. Yeah, and we were talking about some of the great heroes that served, one of which is sitting in the studio with us right now. His name is Joe Pons, and he served in the Army. And we were talking during the break that he was actually deployed and overseas and serving our country during, say that again, it was during Operation
Desert Shield, Desert Storm.
Wow.
So we were called up as a reserve unit. Kudos and shout out to the 810th Military Police Company Combat Support in Tampa, Florida. We were called up September 10th. We hit the ground on Halloween, and we stayed until May of 1991.
Yeah, thank you again for your service. I thought when he was talking about his background of being military police, I said, now we feel extra safe here, right? This is good. This is good. But, we were also talking about during the first part of the show that your father, who actually not only is an author, but boy, you read his biography, you're like, wow, look at all this stuff this man has accomplished, and that he's still giving back in the community. What a great resource. But we were talking about the fact that he was helicopter pilot in Vietnam, and as we were just trading notes around during mid-show break, then I come to the remembrance that Jim Votro, who's on the other side of the glass with us, was also a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. Thank you, sir, for your service. And that I understand you were shot down twice?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was very common back then. I mean, you'd auto-rotate into an LZ, and, that was about it. Sometimes it was a little bit more difficult to get back. The problem was always walking back from the LZ.
I can't even fathom that. In my younger days, I was a cadet in the Civil Air Patrol. That was about as close to any of this as I got. But wow, how do you guys have the courage? To do all that? It's like unbelievable.
Well, the first thing that you had to remember, and was very fortunate, I had a crew chief that sat there and said, "Son, are you scared?" I said, "Yes, sir."
Yeah.
I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Well, let me tell you something. You see those body bags over there?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Don't sir me." And I sit there and said, well, yes, I see them. And he says, "Well, those body bags, just consider yourself in one of them. Then you're just going to come out and do your job." And that really was good advice. That really was good advice because, honestly speaking, you did your job. You didn't really think.
Wow.
You didn't think. You thought about what you learned, and you thought about what you learned in basic, what you learned in helicopter school, and then, again, what you learned by flying. And we used to fly a lot. We were the truck drivers. They called us the truck drivers because we weren't, fancy pants F4 pilots. Excuse me.
Right.
Excuse me. We weren't fancy pants. We fly 5 or 6 times a week. We were flying 5 or 6 times a day.
Wow.
And we were doing that. And it's just something. The helicopter really proved itself in Vietnam more so than Korea. Yeah. In Korea, they didn't really have the Hueys, the Iroquois, whatever you want to call it, UH-1B. And I'll tell you, those things were really, really, really great. They really and truly were in terms of helping people get into LZs and out of LZs. And LZ is a landing zone.
Right.
So, we spent our time coming in on the elephant grass and all that kind of stuff. But we picked up people, we dropped off people. That's what we did.
Wow. Well, again, thank you for your service. And I was thinking as I was talking to Joe during the mid-show break as well, I said, when you're describing being there kind of like in all of that, it just seems like it takes a tremendous amount of courage. And thank you guys for all of you for your service. Because so John Harper, you too, right? You served, right?
He was military police as well.
Yeah, I was.
Oh, no. Wow.
I was in Nam, right.
Wow.
Yeah, I was in the southern part of Vietnam, a very small base called Ben Thuy.
Oh, Ben Thuy.
And I remember there were so many incidents and things, but back in those days, I used to be in pretty good shape, and I would jog around the base, which was about 4 miles. I would jog every day about 4 miles. And I remember one day in particular, I'm jogging, and I see some helicopters, not gyms, but I would see some helicopters spraying something that looked like fog to kill mosquitoes.
Uh-oh.
So I would, it kind of reminded me of being home in St. Petersburg, where you would get the fog to kill the mosquitoes.
Right.
So I would just keep on running through this fog,
Oh, my goodness.
this mist, and come to find out it was Agent Orange.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
So it did have some effects upon me, but fortunately I'm still here to talk about it.
Well, and we are certainly glad that you are. And wow, so you and Joe will have some great war stories to trade after the show. But I do want to make sure that we get into the conversation about Canadian Meds of Melbourne, because we were talking about in the break that one of the things that we get the calls all the time on that senior information line, 321-473-7770. We get calls about everything. We were just talking about it first half of the show. Has been a lot about housing, but now transportation is fast rising. But oftentimes it's legal, medical, and financial, and people are really, maybe it's because of the housing crisis that they're really like, I can eat or I can get my medicine, but I can't do both. I can't imagine, Joe, trying to even have to make those kind of decisions, but yet it seems to be reality for a lot of people.
It is, and sadly, that's part of the reason why I started this business. I got sick. A little segue from being active military, I did some defense contracting, and we are notably paid very well, extremely well, but with no benefits. After spending a lovely 5-day, 4-night stay in a local hospital because I couldn't get to the VA hospital, I got a bill for $16,000, and that was just for the room.
Dear Lord.
So you can only imagine, that was 12 years ago, what it costs now. I mean, where can you stay at a 5-star resort somewhere in the world for $16,000? Pretty much anywhere.
I was going to say, I could think of places I'd rather stay.
Rather be, right? Places you'd rather be. And it wasn't like it was a suite. I had to share a room with a coughing gentleman for those 5 days. The fact of the matter is that I saw that there was a problem.
Yeah.
And it still continues. There's, politics aside, we have people who talk and talk and talk, but when it comes right down to it, you, me, everyone here in Brevard County, across the United States, we have issues, whether you know it or not, whether you get to experience it or not. The fact is that the money that is required to purchase a single medication can soar. And we're talking about maladies that most people consider to be covered by insurance. Used to be a time when you had great insurance, you had great medicine coverage. That's no longer. There are 2 separate entities now, and it's possible to get great coverage on one side and poor coverage on the other. And I get to see it every day, where when I first started, I dealt almost exclusively with people who had no insurance. Now it's about a 50-50 split, where I have people who have absolutely no coverage whatsoever, and I have people who have great coverage, who have one particular medication that is absolutely astronomical. We're talking about one medication that can cost anywhere between $300 a month to $1,000 a month.
Wow, who can do that?
And that is the question. I mean, who do you know that has $1,000 just lying around doing nothing when
every month?
Says, well, it's like, and that's where the issue comes in is, well, what do I have to sacrifice in order to come up with this extra money?
Right.
Do you have to saw off an arm to take it down to the local pharmacy and get it paid for? Or you can pick up the phone and call little Joe, and we'll go ahead and we'll see if we can make a good fit for you.
No, I was just going to say, because that's what you do with Canadian Meds of Melbourne. You have some alternatives that are safe, proven, vetted out. It's not like you're just going out on the internet and
correct.
You don't know what they're going to send you, right?
Yes, and that's one of the things that comes up is besides being, is it legal, is it safe? These are the same medications that you are taking now. It's just that when you work with us where it comes from.
Right.
Right now, you go down to the pharmacy and you assume, and it's rightly so, that American drug companies make American drugs for Americans here in America, and that's not always the truth.
Uh-huh.
As a matter of fact, it is rarely the truth anymore. And the products that we provide, not just generics that are not currently available here in the United States, but the brand name medications, either the same ones by the same companies to the same exacting standards, it's just that you save anywhere between 60 to 90%.
It's really incredible when you think about it, because on a small scale, we sit right now where we are on the calendar. We're in what they call annual enrollment period. So we have a lady in our senior resource center that both your company, you, Joe Pons, and Canadian Meds of Melbourne, and Jennifer's company, Seniors Helping Seniors, you guys are all in there together. So there's a lady in our center also, Vicki Moore, whose company, Moore Insurance Solutions. She's like an expert on Medicare. And one of the things every time I sit and talk with her is she talks about how she sits down with a senior, and one of the most important things that they converse about is which medications are you taking, because I guess she's got like little computers that she can put in and try to make sure that you're not hitting donut holes, or which plan might work the best for you. And I was thinking about that even in our own personal life. Like, we found things like GoodRx, because sometimes even if you have insurance coverage, if you check it against a different source, you'll find some way that there's a big price difference. And that makes it very difficult and maybe even stressful, right? Because you have a medication, the doctor says, this is what you need. So you just blindly run down to the drugstore and say, this is what I got to have. Right. And then you get sticker shock when they tell you you're supposed to take this every month and how much it's going to cost every month. But that's where you can step in.
Exactly. And that's where most of my clients, they come out screaming and yelling. And I get the end result of the sticker shock, and they pick up the phone and start yelling at me and telling me that if I don't help them, they're not going to take their medication.
Wow.
And it's sad that we collectively are not aware of such a situation until we're in it.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of transparency about these prices, because I was just thinking about that, like on just our own limited case, which is, in our case, it's not Medicare yet, because we're not ready for Medicare yet. But just when you get the price that they say this is what it is when we use your insurance, it may not necessarily just by itself be the best price that's available to you. And yes. I'm thinking, like, because what you do, the medication, the pricing, so you can say to somebody, this is a good deal, or hey, no, we can maybe work this better through this.
That's absolutely correct. What I tell people, because they look for savings where there just isn't. They're doing absolutely fantastic.
Right.
I just tell them, consider me your second opinion guy.
Yeah.
You're paying $5 a month for what your neighbor's paying $1,000. Guess what? Congratulations. You're doing great. Keep it up. If anything changes, give us a call. And they're very grateful for that. And I appreciate it. But like you said, until somebody sits down and says, okay, what you're paying isn't the lowest price. Maybe you should get a discount card or call Little Joe. You don't know. And it's our collective fault. We've allowed certain entities within our range of influence to just dictate to us, and we assume, as we well should, as great Americans should, we think, hey, you know what? We're paying this money every month. Guess what? I'm doing great. And then you find out that with a card that you can get online that you can save 15%.
Yeah, and everything makes a big difference as prices go up. We're talking with Joe Pons, who is Canadian Meds of Melbourne. If they want to give you a call, what's a good number to reach and say, hey, I'd like to go over my med list and see if there's something you could help me with?
321-574-3675. 321-574-6976. Again, that's 321-574-6976. You can ask for me, Little Joe, my staff. We're here to help you at any point in time. You can visit our website at CanadianMeds-Melbourne.com, and that's a dash, not an underscore. You can email me at joe at that same domain. We're here to help, and it's an absolutely complimentary consultation. Bring your list. We'll go over everything. If you're doing great, I'll congratulate you. If not, guess what? We're here to help.
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask you. Is that really the right advice to somebody who's listening? Say, like, gather your prescriptions, give Joe a call, and let's just go through it and see what's out there, and if there's ways that you could trim that, because, man, if you could save $100 or $200 a month, that's like somebody's grocery bill maybe.
Yes, what we're talking about is quality of life. We talk about the dollar amounts, and that's wonderful. I have clients who can, because they're saving anywhere between $1,000 and $1,500 a month, they can purchase a used car every single year and then throw it away the next year because of the savings.
Wow. So that's a point that I want to kind of like jokingly bring up, but I want you to set me straight on this. So, like, we'll love to cruise. We'll get on a cruise ship, and we found out, like, you go to a place like Belize and you walk in a little pharmacy there. Now, this is what they're telling you. I'm not saying I believe them.
Right.
But they're saying this is the same medication that you're paying this much for back in the States, and you can buy it here for, and it's some like minuscule price. And what they tell us, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, they say, but it's because the patents and basically the drug manufacturers are trying to extract out what they put in research and development, which is why when a medication that was name brand goes generic, it usually drops in price by like an incredible amount. Yes. So what they try to tell us, like in Belize, is, you're getting the same medicine. It's just at this fraction of a price. Of course, you have no idea if that's true or not, because, for all you know, it could be a sugar pill in a bottle. How would you know, right?
Correct.
But set us straight. This is why it's important that they do. Here again, we're back to, you got to talk to somebody who's local, because they know what's going on. They're accountable. You can pick up the phone and go like, hey, what's the case here, or what do I need to do about this? And they can reach a real person who's local and who cares. But how do you find and source the things so that it's safe, it's effective, it's the same thing that you might get off the shelf here? So it's not like wandering into some pharmacy in a third world country that has like dusty bottles on the shelf and everything looks a little bit suspect, right?
Yes. Well, what we've done, and this is just our business model, is we've gone with two different routes. We have a worldwide distributor where we can get the medications from the factories and distributors where the medicine is actually made. And then, of course, we have our pharmacists who are in Canada. What this does is this guarantees that the medicine that you receive is exactly what you pay for. You're right. You go to other countries, you can get the same exact medication that we're taking here for a mere fraction of the cost. The question then is, how long has it been sitting there?
Yeah.
Has it been cared for properly? That may not be the case.
Wow, that's a good point. I didn't even think of that one.
And that's where, for what we do, there are certain countries and certain companies that we do not deal with. People say, Little Joe, I saw on XYZ website that your prices aren't the lowest. And I will fully agree. Absolutely. I understand that. But what you get from us, if they cannot be inspected by the FDA or they're the country's equivalent of the FDA, we will not sell it.
Yeah.
The fact is that I myself take medication from my own company.
Yeah.
There are some medicines that are not covered, and I have great coverage, as they say.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a chance on your own health, your mom's health, your husband's health? Do you want to take a chance on getting that sugar pill when you're supposed to be taking a medication that is going to lengthen your life or possibly save your life, depending on the medical situation that you're in? Or would you rather pay just a skosh more and make sure that what you're getting is what you're supposed to take.
You know, that is such wisdom, because we often talk about, like, you look for the lowest price because we're all bargain hunters, or most of us need to be bargain hunters anyway. So we're always trying to, how do I get the most bang for my buck? But oftentimes, just what you're saying is the least expensive option may be too cheap for what you're trying to do. And in the case of health, you can't mess around. I love something you said about, let me be your second opinion. You know, every doctor, when if they talk to you about, like, you might need this procedure or this might be the thing that we suggest for you, usually your insurance company say, but let's have you get a second opinion, make sure everybody's on the same page.
Correct.
And if you think about it, it might be annoying, but it's really is for your benefit, so that you can be sure that the second doctor agrees with the first doctor that, yes, we need to move forward on this. And I was thinking the same thing. So the doctor gives you a prescription. And one thing I've learned just through, like, playing with Good RX is that it does depend on which drugstore you choose.
Absolutely.
As to what the price is going to be. So I can only imagine how valuable what you would do for somebody, taking that list and looking through it and saying, you know, if we add these, you may be taking 5, 6, 7 different things that the doctor wants you to have each month. You know, you can probably look at that and help somebody determine if there's some real savings. And it sounds like, for the most part, more often than not, you're finding that.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Part of what we do as a service is we work with our clients who are on Medicare, who have Part D, and try to keep them out of the donut hole. I have one young lady who's been with me for a very long time, many years. She falls into that donut hole in March. Her medications exceed the amount that the benefits provide, and then she's in what they call the donut hole.
Right.
She's got to come up with that extra money to get out of it. Part of what we do is we help people look at their list of medications, find the ones that we can save money on, because if you're going to take it out of pocket, it doesn't matter where it's going. And particularly if we can keep those benefits all the way through December, or at the very least get you into that last quarter where it doesn't hurt so much, then we can do you a great service. And most people don't think about it. And it's their druthers. They can call us whenever they want. I have clients who call me when they fall into the donut hole, only when they fall into the donut hole. So I hear from them once or twice a year. And that's fine. I love it. And particularly when they bring me cookies. But it's usually, you know, that last quarter where the benefits have run out, and now they're looking at, wow, you mean to tell me the medication that I've been spending $15 a month costs me $500 now? Yes, that's exactly right, and that's why you call us. If we can get you to pay just a little bit more over the course of the year, then guess what? You don't fall into the donut hole. January 1st comes along, everybody's happy, you're happy, we're happy, and the world's a brighter place.
Joe, I've got to have you come back for another where we could just talk about donut hole, because there's so much to just extrapolate out of that in particular. Jennifer, you wanted to...
that's my nickname for him, is Donut Hole Joe.
Well, that would make sense, because we really have to have that conversation just in its entirety. Because I was thinking, like, and this, we were talking about it earlier when I was mentioning Vicki Moore, who is Moore Insurance Solutions Center in our Senior Resource Center, because that's one of the reasons you really got to look at your prescription, because the formula, that's what they call it, right? The formulary. What's covered and what's not, will change every year. So just sticking your head in the sand and not paying attention could be a big problem for you next year. So particularly while we're in November and December, it's a great time to call Joe. So how do we call Donut Hole Joe? How do we reach Donut Hole Joe?
You can reach out 321-574-6976. Again, that's 321-574-6976. And just an aside, you do not have to live exclusively in Brevard County, or Melbourne as it is. Anyone within the United States. So if you have a cousin who lives in New Jersey or aunt who lives in California, tell them to pick up the phone, give us a call. We'll compare their medications, and perhaps we can save them some money as well.
I love it. I think that's so good. And literally, that is about the time we have for the Helping Seniors radio show today. We've been talking with Joe Pons of Canadian Meds of Melbourne, and Jennifer Barton with Seniors Helping Seniors. Both are great friends in the Senior Resource Center of Brevard right there on Apollo Drive. So thanks for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We'll see you next week right here back for Helping Seniors Radio.